Hey guys, tonight we find ourselves climbing aboard something a little different. A train that never really leaves, but also never truly arrives. Imagine thick woolly fog curling around your boots as you step off a narrow country road. The Highland wind is sharp and smells like peat and pine and old wet stone. You're not exactly sure why you took the trip. Maybe the website promised cozy, haunted luxury, and you were feeling brave or reckless. Either way, you're here now, standing at the edge of a disused rail line where someone stitched together half a dozen Victorian train cars into what they call an inn. A quiet knock will come soon, you've been warned. Just not from the hallway. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is, where you are always fun to see who else is awake at this hour. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. The inn has no front desk, no receptionist, just a crooked wooden sign that says the Invergarry Line Inn swinging in the wind, and a small brass bell you ring that somehow echoes far louder than it should. The air is damp. Moss clings to the sides of the old train cars like the past refusing to let go. Your footsteps thunk hollowly on the metal platform, and you duck through the narrow doorway of what used to be Carriage A. There's a short hallway and a row of doors with gold room numbers barely visible under layers of polish and years. The room you're given, Room 7, is compact and smells like cedar whiskey and old train oil. It's warm, but not by much. The bed looks surprisingly modern, though the walls are still lined in crimson velvet with overhead racks where suitcases probably rattled once upon a time. The fog outside presses thick against the windows. You try not to imagine anything pressing back. There's an electric kettle and a welcome tin of shortbread, so you settle in with a cup of tea, listening to the slow creak of the old wood as it settles. The inn is quiet, almost too quiet. No voices, no other guests. Just the rhythmic drip of condensation off the eaves and the occasional moan of wind through the Highland heather. You're just about to pull the covers over your head when it happens. Knock, soft. Not at the door, at the window. Your second-story window. You freeze. Logically, there's no balcony, no ledge. Just the cold pane and the mist swirling like slow breath. Another knock. This one more deliberate. You cross the room, heart thumping a little now, and pull back the velvet curtain. No one's there, but the condensation has been wiped away in the shape of a small handprint. Not fresh, but not old either. The smudge lingers even as your breath fogs the glass again. And then you blink. Something on the platform below. A figure, small, possibly female, barefoot, wearing what looks like a 1930s train porter's uniform. You rush to the hallway, down the narrow stairs, through the creaking carriage and out the door. But by the time your boots hit the gravel outside, there's only the wind and the white mist. You call out. No answer, just your own voice echoing off the glen. Back inside, you find a fireplace flickering where there wasn't one lit before. On the mantel, a dusty photo in a cracked leather frame. It shows a young girl in a porter's outfit, standing on this very platform, smiling beside a rail car labeled Carriage B. You peer closer. Someone scribbled something faintly in the lower corner. Knocked once, not again. 1939. No date stamp, no plaque. You look again, but the fireplace is back to cold brick. No flame, no photo. Just a bare mantle and a whisper of ash that wasn't there earlier. Historians still argue whether converted train-ins like these are truly restorations or just elaborate reenactments for tourists. But there are a few, very few, like Invergarry, which never formally closed. They just stopped operating. Tickets stopped selling. Engines fell silent. And yet some staff, just a handful, were never officially recorded as having left. Some even have pension records that remain open. Strange, right? Even stranger local legend says one such porter, a teenage girl, vanished one foggy evening in 1939. Guests claimed she tapped on their windows the night before, but no one thought much of it until after the war, when the carriage she was last seen in carriage B was sealed. No key, no reason given, just welded shut and quietly ignored. Locals joked it had too many return customers. You're not superstitious, but you're not stupid either. You lock your door that night, double-check the windows, and tuck yourself under the thick tartan blanket. Still, it's hard to shake the image of the smudged handprint, or the girl's expression in the photo, cheerful, yes, but also waiting. Before sleep finally catches you, you could swear you hear it again. Faint, rhythmic, knock, knock, but this time from somewhere deeper in the train. You wake before dawn, the light outside still hesitant and blue. The fog hasn't lifted, it clings like a second ceiling, thick as porridge, and twice as nosy. The kettle clicks as you make tea again, partly to warm your hands, partly to distract yourself from the unnerving sense that someone or something was moving through the train cars while you slept. Your boots make a soft thud on the old wooden floorboards as you move cautiously out of your room, heading for the lounge car. You pass rooms with numbers that skip strangely. Room 3, then 5, then suddenly 9. You pause. Could have sworn you saw 6 last night. But memory and mist have never been good dance partners. The lounge car is cozy, if slightly uncanny. It's all plush velvet seats and brass luggage racks that rattle when the wind gusts outside. A battered old bar occupies one corner, complete with an empty bowl of lemon slices and a register that rings when you tap it despite no visible power. The fire crackles in the hearth even though you don't remember lighting it. Again, you sit sipping your tea and staring at a leather-bound guest book someone's left open on the table. It smells of dust clove and mothballs, like someone's attic full of forgotten memories. The pages are brittle, thick parchment, and the ink has faded to a deep sepia. The names listed aren't recent, not even close. April 12, 1879, Madame Alouette d'Armoise, arrived well, departed, uncertain. September 4th, 1901, A. Dempsey, lost luggage, found something else. October 31st, 1939, P. Kavanagh, knock came again. This time opened. Each signature is neat, deliberate, and in wildly differing handwriting styles. Cursive, block letters, even what looks like early Gaelic. You flip further back and find something even stranger, ink, that sparkles faintly under the dim gaslight. A page entirely in runes you can't identify, written with a sharp, angled precision that looks machine-made. That's not even the weirdest part. The most recent signature reads, August 18, 2025, your name here. Still listening. You didn't write that. You haven't touched the pen beside the book. Yet there it is clear as day, the date only 2 months away. Historians still argue whether ledger books like this were ever officially kept by train staff, or if they were more a romantic novelty offered to wealthy guests. But certain phantom train lines, especially in isolated places like the Highlands, were rumoured to keep secondary logs lists, not of passengers, but of anomalies. Strange weather, mismatched time, disappearing doors. The Invergary line, according to fringe researchers with far too much time and not enough supervision, was notorious for 3 things: spontaneous fog banks, a train car that sometimes changed length mid-journey, and passengers who remembered events no one else could corroborate. You flip to the very first page. Dated March 3rd, 1841. It reads, "Test run successful. Only one traveller noticed. Excellent." You sit back, tea, forgotten fingers cold around the cup. This isn't just a guest book. It's a manifest of moments, strange, uncanny little notes written by people like you who wandered into something much older than a novelty inn. You glance around. The train creaks shifts. A shadow crosses the frosted glass of the carriage door just for a second. You call out half expecting no answer. None comes. Curiosity overcomes common sense, which honestly happens more often than you'd like to admit. You tuck the ledger under your arm and follow the corridor forward toward the older carriages. Eventually, you reach carriage B. The door is chained shut, of course. Rusty links strung tight through the old handles fastened with a brass padlock that looks like it was forged back when people said things like hark. There's no keyhole, just a swirling symbol you don't recognize. But when your hand touches the lock, the metal clicks softly, like it's relieved. The chain falls away. Inside, the air smells different. Older. Charged, maybe. Like the moment before a thunderstorm or the moment after one, when your hair's still full of static. The walls are lined with luggage racks, but the bags aren't modern. There's a cracked leather trunk marked property of P. Kavanagh, a velvet hat box, even a steamer chest with faded stickers from Cairo, Vienna, and something called New Bath, which you're pretty sure doesn't exist. You step carefully, your boots muffled by an old woven carpet that runs the center aisle. At the far end, you spot a wooden bench with a satchel resting neatly atop it. The pocket is unzipped just enough to reveal an old map and what looks like a timetable. But the destinations are unfamiliar. Some are just single letters. Others say things like beneath Loch Morlich or after the bell tolls twice. You pull the map halfway out. It's hand-drawn. Lines crisscrossing the globe like a spiderweb with certain stops glowing faintly gold. One of them is labeled simply, "You here," and then just like that, the door behind you creaks closed. Not slams, just closes. With finality, you whirl around. Nothing there. Just silence, the low hum of the walls, and a peculiar ticking sound. Your eyes fall on the bench. A pocket watch, old and silver, ticks beside the satchel, but not in sync with any clock you've ever heard. It ticks forward, then back. Pauses, then ticks sideways somehow. That shouldn't be possible, but here it is. You pick it up, and for a moment the air feels thinner. The fog outside the window pulls close, like it's peering in. You hold your breath. Then, knock. Not at the window, from inside the wall. You don't move at first. You just stand there, pocket watch in one hand, breath caught halfway to escape, while the knock echoes dull and hollow inside the very bones of the train. It doesn't sound like a pipe or a squirrel or whatever else you prefer it to be. It sounds like someone who expects you to open something. You place the watch back on the bench quietly, like you're afraid to spook the sound. The tick-tock continues its lazy sideways rhythm, like it's taunting your sense of time. In fact, you glance at your phone, and it reads 4:17 a.m. But it's been 4:17 for a while now. You knock back, just once, then wait. Silence. Then two knocks in reply. Okay, that's not creepy at all. You press your ear gently to the wall, feeling the cold metal through your skin. There's nothing, no wind, no rodents, no distant heating ducts. Just stillness and the faintest sound of breathing. Rhythmic, human. And just as you're about to write this off as some hypnagogic hallucination brought on by too much shortbread, the wall creaks, and a panel, one you hadn't noticed at all, eases open, revealing a narrow space between the carriage walls. It's not quite a hallway, not quite a crawl space. More like a memory that someone left partially ajar. Naturally, you step inside. The passage smells of coal smoke and lavender oil. It's lit by a dim blue glow coming from hidden lamps or possibly fungus. Honestly, you're not ready to rule anything out anymore. At the far end, there's a small compartment like a forgotten guard's booth. Inside a desk, dusty, cobwebbed, but clearly once important. There's a conductor's cap hanging on the wall, and pinned beneath it, a ledger marked "Personnel Only." You open it with one finger. The pages list names, job titles, and dates of employment. Some are crossed out. Others have symbols next to them. A star, a crescent, a tiny train sketch. One name near the bottom is circled repeatedly: G. Bellamy Porter's assistant, last seen October 31st, 1939. Underneath, someone's written, returned 12 minutes before the train. No questions. Historians still argue whether certain British rail lines employed Porter's assistants in an official capacity, or if those were simply apprentices or young volunteers. But on odd rural lines like this one, there were persistent rumors of unofficial staff. People who handled strange luggage or helped guests whose tickets didn't list any destinations. You look again at the name, G. Bellamy. Could that be the girl in the photo? A quirky aside buried in a 1970s travel guide about Highland Rail history mentions a young assistant known only as Greta, who was rumored to walk the line between stops even at night, even in fog, even when no train was scheduled. Locals gave her the nickname, the girl who knocks, though most chalked it up to fireside storytelling and too much whiskey. You look around the compartment. One drawer is open just a sliver. Inside you find a bundle of telegrams bound by a red ribbon. Most are unreadable, water-damaged, singed, or written in languages that no longer have speakers. But one is addressed to you. You blink. It's your name written in that same sharp-angled hand from the guest book. The message is brief. She waits between carriages. Do not look back. You glance over your shoulder. You immediately regret that, because standing halfway down the narrow corridor is a girl, young, barefoot, her uniform coat too large for her sleeves rolled up, her head tilted just slightly like she's curious or like she's listening. She doesn't move, doesn't breathe, but you swear her eyes glint in the soft blue glow. And even stranger, there's no sound at all, not even the ticking watch, just void. You take one cautious step forward. She mirrors it. Exactly. Another step back. She mirrors that too. Not threatening, just mimicking, until she lifts her hand and makes the same motion as last night, palm to window, slow drag down the glass. Only this time there's no window, just air. You inch backward one step at a time until you find the little panel again. You slip through it and pull it closed behind you, feeling your pulse crash in your ears like a commuter train, late to work. Back in carriage B, everything looks the same, except the pocket watch is gone. So is the satchel, but now resting on the bench is something else. A lantern. One of those old railway lamps with colored glass you twist to change the signal. It's glowing red. You pick it up. It flickers, then shifts to blue. Out the window, the fog churns like it's reacting. Or clearing, and you can see faintly a platform that wasn't there before. It stretches into the glen arched with ironwork signs barely legible through the mist. You can just make out the letters Craig Darrach Station. That's not on any map you've seen. And the Invergarry line was never supposed to have a stop there. And yet, just visible through the thick mist is the silhouette of another train. Not this inn, not a museum piece, but a working, breathing steam engine. Lights on, smoke curling upward, and standing beside it, half in shadow, is the girl. Greta, her hand lifted, not waving, but beckoning. You don't remember opening the door to carriage B, but the next thing you know, your boots are crunching gravel again, and the fog feels less like weather and more like an invitation. Your breath fogs as you step onto the platform, though the air doesn't feel cold. It's the kind of chill that has nothing to do with temperature and everything to do with thresholds. This place, wherever here is, wasn't made for the usual rules. Craig Darrach Station is eerily quiet, even by ghost platform standards. The signs are wrought iron curls barely holding onto their paint. Wooden benches sag under the weight of time. A single gas lamp flickers above you, casting long shadows in every wrong direction. You glance behind. No train, no inn, no fog. Just dark glen and empty tracks that dissolve into heather and bramble. The girl Greta is still standing by the other train, which looks like it stepped right out of 1897. Brass trim, gleaming wheels, a locomotive polished with obsessive care, like someone expects royalty at any minute. A plaque reads, Invergary northbound non-linear route. Final call when called. She nods to you. Once then steps up onto the platform of the rear car. The door creaks open behind her, and that's when you notice something strange. Again, the closer you get to the train, the heavier your feet feel, like gravity's been dialed up slightly. Not enough to panic, just enough to make walking feel consequential. Inside the train is nothing like the cozy lounge car from before. This one is functional, military neat. Each carriage marked with names you don't recognize: transitory quarters, observation, A sundries, and lost time. You choose observation A because, let's be honest, you're not ready for a room labeled lost time. The door hisses as it slides open. Inside is a long corridor lined with seats facing huge windows, though you can't see out of them. Not because it's dark, but because what's outside is other. Not fog, not landscape. Just a slow, swirling amber void. You take a seat near the middle. The cushion is surprisingly warm. Greta joins you without a word. She opens a small logbook and begins writing. You glance over, casually nosy. Her handwriting is jagged but clear. Passenger observed timeline overlap. Memory resonance confirmed. Watch activated. She looks at you not unkindly. Her mouth doesn't move, but somehow you hear. You kept the knock. Kept it. You flash back to last night, the window, the sound, your hesitation. And that ledger, the guest book that signed itself. Somehow you accepted something. Opened a door. Or maybe a loop. Historians still argue whether time anomalies ever occurred on British railways. Most dismiss the notion as pseudoscience, a side effect of steam, hallucinations, or faulty altimeters. But in fringe circles, the Invergary line is a prized example of a temporal braid, a location where events fold inward and braid back over themselves. Travelers report seeing versions of themselves, or catching glimpses of events days before they happen. The train lurches forward, not violently, just decisively. Outside, the swirling amber starts to ripple. For a split second, you see something impossible. Yourself, outside the window, walking in the opposite direction, toward a different platform. You blink, gone. Greta scribbles another note. Split achieved. Timeline divergence passive. You clear your throat. So, where are we going? She looks at you. You already went. We're just meeting you again. Super helpful. The train picks up speed, and with it, the light outside shifts to silver. You pass through what looks like an old library floating, then a mountain range that curls upward like a scroll. Then briefly, an endless field of train carriages stacked like bookshelves, disappearing into the clouds. Greta hands you a folded paper. On it is a single line. The knock is an invitation. The answer is not. Chill. She points to another door marked dining. Answers are best taken with tea. She adds aloud, this time voice like mist sliding off stone. Inside the dining car, the vibe is slightly less creepy, Victorian train to purgatory, and more high-class weird. The tables are elegantly set with bone china and silver spoons. But the food is unnerving. A plate of steaming blackberries with frost still on them. toast that smells like childhood memories, jam jars labeled "if you remember" and "not yet," and at your place, a bowl of clear soup, just steam, no broth. Yet somehow you feel warmer with every sip. Another passenger sits across from you now, middle-aged man, sharp suit, shoes too clean. He grins. "Welcome aboard, first time." Is it that obvious? He sips something from a cup labeled "regret lightly sweetened." "I rode this train last March. Found myself in 1916 France. Spoke fluent French. Never learned it. Woke up in my flat with trench mud still on my coat." You pause mid-sip. "And you came back, only if you let them," he says. "The train doesn't keep you. You keep the train." Outside, the scenery shifts again. This time your hometown. The street you grew up on. Then the bookstore where you once got locked in as a kid. Then your grandmother's flat, the curtains still fluttering just like they did the day she passed. This train isn't moving through space. It's moving through you. The man tips his hat and fades like he was never there. You look down. The soup's gone cold. Greta appears in the doorway again. "One last stop," she says like it's nothing. But something in her voice tells you that whatever comes next isn't on any timetable. You follow Greta through a corridor that seems to get narrower with each step, like the train is trying to squeeze you into something smaller. Memory instinct. It's hard to say. The overhead lights shift in tone first, amber, then sea green. Then something not visible, but definitely felt. Like when someone enters the room just behind you. At the end of the hallway is a door marked only with a carved symbol. A circle intersected by a vertical line. Not a cross, not a zero-something older. Something that makes your stomach tighten before your brain even catches up. Greta places her hand on it. The door slides open with a sigh. Inside is a single carriage. Wood-paneled, domed ceiling. Plush, velvet seats arranged in a circle. No windows, just mirrors, 12 of them, each one slightly mismatched in size and frame. As you step in the door, closes behind you with a sound like an exhale. This is it. You can feel it in your ribs. Greta motions for you to sit. The seat beneath you sighs too. Or maybe you're imagining that. It's a night for strange acoustics. In the center of the circle is a pedestal holding your pocket watch. Yes, the one that vanished earlier, except it's open now. Its hands are spinning slowly backward. Greta speaks softly. The train brings us where the passenger remembers most clearly, or where they're most afraid. That's comforting, you mutter. So, which is it? She tilts her head. Sometimes they're the same. You glance at the mirrors. At first, you see only yourself tired, confused, clearly regretting not just going for the cozy Airbnb in Fort William. But as you look longer, the reflections change. In one, you're younger, too young to ride alone. In another, older wrinkles around your eyes, a silver streak in your hair. In a third, you're wearing a uniform you've never owned. Each version of you is doing something different. One reads, one sobs, one is asleep peaceful, another is knocking softly rhythmically on glass. You step closer to that one. The knocking continues. Greta stands beside you now. Each reflection holds a root. Not all roots return. Which one is mine? She nods toward the knocking version. That one's been waiting. You hesitate. Of course you do, wouldn't you? Because the thing about doors is they rarely open in only one direction. The knocking might be an echo, or an invitation, or a trap, but you lift your hand and mirror the gesture. Your reflection freezes, then nods. And just like that, the mirror fogs clears and becomes a window. Beyond it, a platform. Just like Craig Direct Station, but busier. Passengers, luggage, steam, but also tanks. Not metaphorical ones. Military tanks, British Mark IVs, and beyond them, stone arches, bunting, soldiers. You're looking at Waverley Station, Edinburgh. November 11th, 1918. You've seen this in black and white newsreels. Victory Day. The war's end. The cheers. The brass bands. A collective exhale of relief and grief so vast it still vibrates through time. One mainstream historical fact: Waverley Station was one of the busiest hubs for troop departures and returns during World War I. Over 300,000 soldiers passed through it during the war years. For many, it was their last glimpse of home. Greta presses a button on the pedestal. The pocket watch stops. The door to the train slides open again. This time, it's not the narrow corridor. It's the platform. The real platform. Or, as real as any of this is. She looks at you, almost apologetic. You're needed here. Needed. Someone has to carry the knockback. You step out into the noise. The crush of bodies. Horns blare. A conductor shouts. A woman weeps into her gloves. And as you take one uncertain step onto the stone platform, you realize you're dressed differently. Not your clothes. A porter's uniform. Same as Greta's. Same oversized coat. Same brass button at the throat. A man rushes past you, eyes wild. Which train's bound for York? Another brushes your arm. Seen my brother? He's with the Seaforth Highlanders, blonde hair, chipped tooth. No one sees you as strange. You're part of it now. You glance back. Greta's there. Still in the train. Still holding that little logbook. She writes something. You can't read it. Then she raises a hand. The same gesture. Palm to glass. Slow drag down. You mirror it. And the train pulls away. Just like that. Now you're in 1918, Armistice Day. And you can feel the weight of something in your coat pocket. The watch. But this time it's ticking normally. Some historians believe time is not linear but recursive spiraling loops that sometimes brush against each other. Others argue that locations of deep emotional resonance stations, hospitals, churches, act as anchors or hinges bending time inward. But what none of them can explain is the knock, the universal human instinct to ask before entering. And yet sometimes we knock even when there's no door. Sometimes we hear it back. You start walking the platform. There's someone knocking, somewhere, and now it's your turn to answer. It's dusk again, though the sky refuses to commit to color. Not quite pink, not quite gray. A bruised kind of twilight that seeps into your sleeves and sits behind your eyes. The crowd at Waverley Station thins. The soldiers have boarded. The families have said their impossible goodbyes. The flags droop like they've done their duty. And you stand by the bench nearest platform 4 pocket watch. Ticking steadily, hands warmed by your own breath. You feel older than you should. Not physically, just stretched. Like your story has more pages than your memory can hold. Then you hear it again. A knock. Not urgent, not fearful, just patient. You glance toward the source. A frosted pane, low window. Just beneath the sign marked Parcel Office. You move toward it slowly, heart tightening. Not with fear, but with recognition. Because here's the thing they don't tell you about time travel. Sometimes it's not about changing the past. It's about witnessing it, holding it gently like a cup of breath in cold air. Sometimes the only reason you're sent back is to see. You kneel by the window. Raise your hand. Knock once in return. Silence. Then a girl's voice, soft, barely audible. I can't find my way back. It's familiar. You close your eyes. Press your palm to the glass. I know you whisper, but I kept the knock. Mainstream historical fact. During the 1918 armistice, dozens of children went missing across Britain. Not out of neglect, but confusion. Families reunited. Cities erupted in chaos and celebration. For a brief window, the lines blurred. Some of those children turned up days later, with no memory of where they'd been. Others never. Fringe accounts suggest something stranger. That in moments of collective emotional upheaval, thin places open, portals if you will, doorways through time. One 1923 diary describes a child found on a fog-covered platform, claiming to have ridden a train with red velvet seats, and a girl named Greta. You press harder against the glass. The frost warms beneath your skin, and then the window vanishes. Not fades, not dissolves, just blinks out like a star winking shut. In its place, a brass door handle. You turn it and find yourself back in the corridor of the Scottish Train Inn. Same plaid carpet, same oil lamp flicker. Except now you know every creak in the floorboards, every photo on the wall. They're different. That portrait you passed earlier, the girl on the bench with the suitcase. Now she looks up and smiles at you, just slightly. You reach your room, number 6. Inside the watch rests on the nightstand, ticking gently. You pick it up. It's engraved now. Answer received. There's a note beside it in Greta's jagged hand. Well done. You remembered forward, and you finally let yourself lie back on the bed, because you get it now. The knock at the window wasn't meant to be solved or feared. It was an invitation to remember, not the facts, not the timelines, but the feeling of waiting, of hope, of someone on the other side willing to knock back. Historians still argue whether the Scottish Train Inn ever actually existed. Some say it was a military convalescence home that closed after the war. Others insist it never had a rail line near it. And then there are those rare few who swear they stayed there. Once, briefly, during a storm, or a fog, or a train delay that couldn't possibly have lasted 12 hours. They never find it again, but they all remember the knock. And if you listen closely, even now you'll hear it too. Faint, gentle, from the window nearest your bed. You won't answer, of course. Not tonight, but maybe someday you will. Word count 1, ear 29. Wind down 300 words. So now you ease deeper into the quiet, letting your breath slow, your thoughts soften. The noise of the platform fades. The click of train wheels becomes a distant memory, and the soft rustle of night settles around you, like a warm wool blanket. The brass watch lies gently by your side. It's ticking, no longer a countdown, but a lullaby measured, calm, constant. You're not in the past or the present now. You're just here, drifting between moments, held in that delicate space where dreams slip in like warm mist under the door. Your fingers curl slightly, remembering the cool glass of the window, the echo of that knock soft and sure. You carried it with you through the fog, through the train, through time, and now it carries you back, safe, whole, a little more aware of the quiet magic stitched into the edges of ordinary things. Outside, the stars blink softly above the glen, their light traveling light years just to find your window. Just to remind you, whatever the century, whatever the version of you that wakes tomorrow, someone is always out there, knocking, waiting, remembering. Let that comfort linger. Let it pull the corners of your mouth into the gentlest smile. You made the journey, and now at last it's time to rest. Close your eyes, hold the knock, and drift.